Welcome to The Explainer. Today, I'm stepping into the role of your senior consultant to unpack the definitive playbook for securing visible leadership support and really maximizing your project's impact. Look, if you've ever felt like you're out there pushing a massive boulder up a hill all by yourself on a project, well, this is exactly the explainer you need. We're going to completely transform how you look at the executives above you. As project managers, we constantly fixate on the schedule or the budget. We completely obsess over our Gantt charts, resource allocations, and risk registers. But I want you to step back and consider what underlying force actually dictates whether all those elements hold together when the pressure is really on. What is the single defining factor that can literally make or break your entire initiative? Well, Procy's benchmarking data gives us a definitive answer. Projects with extremely effective sponsorship are nearly 3.5 times more likely to meet or exceed their objectives compared to those with ineffective sponsors. Think about that for a second. It's not just some nice-to-have corporate buzzword. It is the absolute statistical cornerstone of your project's survival. Okay, let's dive right into the strategic playbook. Today we're covering the #1 success predictor, project manager versus sponsor, shifting roles across phases, the change management multiplier, and finally, mastering executive engagement. Let's kick things off with Section 1, the #1 success predictor. ProSci's research makes it crystal clear that being a sponsor is absolutely not a passive title. It's not about an executive just signing the checks and magically showing up for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. True sponsorship is incredibly active. It requires a positive leader who visibly guides the organization through a transition. They have to give consistent attention to the change, champion the cause to motivate the team, make the tough, influential decisions, and, this is crucial, maintain direct, open communication with you, the project management team. Moving right along to Section 2, project manager versus sponsor. We really need to define the boundaries here. Otherwise, you're just going to step on each other's toes. And when these roles blur, projects derail. Let's say you're managing a project to build a new nursery at a local primary school. The sponsor is out there talking to stakeholders, building a rock-solid business case, and securing the funding. Meanwhile, you're the project manager. You're supporting them by gathering contractor costs. You own the day-to-day execution, the schedule, and the project management plan. You handle the tactical delivery, and they handle the strategic governance, making sure the ultimate business outcomes are actually achieved. Which brings us perfectly into Section 3, shifting roles across phases. The thing to remember is that this relationship isn't static. It's a dynamic dance that evolves as your product matures. At the very start, in the concept phase, the sponsor is heavily involved, setting the vision and building the business case. Then, they sort of step back a bit, and you take on the heavy lifting during definition and development. You're managing contractors, laying foundations, and driving that schedule. Finally, as you reach the handover phase, your sponsor steps right back in to liaise with the end users and ensure those business benefits are actually realized. All right, let's jump to Section 4, the change management multiplier. This is essentially the ultimate strategic force multiplier for your sponsor. We're talking about the people side of change. The data shows a massive spike in effectiveness when you have dedicated change management resources. It literally proves the old consultant's golden rule. If it isn't someone's specific job, it's no one's job. To actually get people to adopt a new way of working, someone has to own that process. But here's where it gets really interesting. The real magic happens through integration. When you seamlessly connect that dedicated change management effort directly with your project management activities, like baking change milestones right into your project gates, you are 16% more likely to exceed your objectives. You simply cannot separate the technical execution from the human adoption. They've got to move together. Let's move to our final section, Section 5, mastering executive engagement. Let's be real for a second. Out there in the trenches, your sponsor is rarely going to be picture perfect. You are going to face challenging behaviors, and they usually fall into one of these 7 archetypes. You might get the absentee executive who completely ghosts your emails. Or the polar opposite, the meddlesome sponsor who tries to micromanage your every single move. And let's face it, we've all dealt with one of those. You might also run into the political sponsor, playing games, or the indecisive one who totally paralyzes your schedule. Recognizing these patterns is your first step to neutralizing them. So how do we actually handle them in practice? Let's look at triage tactics for the 2 most common ones. If you've got an absentee sponsor, you must lock them into highly structured, super brief routines. Get a recurring 5-minute sync on their calendar and become best friends with their executive assistant. Make commitments they simply can't break. Now, for the meddlesome sponsor, your strategy is to give them the illusion of control, but in safe areas. Feed them custom dashboards to satisfy that craving for data, and strategically ask for their advice. It flatters them and keeps them engaged without letting them derail your actual day-to-day decisions. Now, what if you're dealing with a dangerous, directional, or political sponsor? Someone who's actively pushing their own narrow agenda at the expense of your project. You gotta tread carefully here. You can't just fight them head-on. Instead, you build an external governance structure right around them. Bring other senior, influential stakeholders into your steering committee. This openly tests their thinking and naturally keeps them in check through transparent, shared decision-making. Basically, whenever you find yourself having to manage up, just lean on this simple 4-step consulting framework. First, project calm competence. Underpromise and overdeliver to build that baseline respect. Second, build the relationship systematically over time by taking a genuine interest in them. Third, diagnose their true underlying needs, like is their micromanaging actually just a deep-seated fear of failure? Address that core fear. And fourth, leverage strategic praise. Remember, they're human too, and they want to feel good about supporting your project. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with this final thought. Your sponsor's effectiveness is literally the biggest predictor of your project's success, but their engagement level is something you can and should actively influence. So here's my challenge to you. Look at your current project today. Pinpoint your sponsor's archetype right now. Ask yourself, what is the true cost to your project if you continue to let that executive relationship go unmanaged? It's time to put this playbook to work and guarantee your next project's success. You've got this.